you ever had the experience of waking up, perhaps in the middle of the night, with no idea where you are? Maybe you were even uncertain about who you are and what's going on. Not an uncommon occurrence after a particularly vivid dream, but in the case of Amnesia, the Dark Descent, you wake up to a living nightmare. Amnesia is a survival horror game that's heavy on the atmosphere. It'll make you paranoid as you navigate dungeons, dodge unsettling enemies, and explore everywhere in search of the missing puzzle piece you need to advance, or just a bit more lantern fluid so you can fight back the insanity-inducing darkness. So be forewarned, potentially disturbing images are everywhere in this game, and in the remainder of this review. As the young Daniel, it is your goal to figure out just what the heck is going on after you come to and part of a castle with no clues about your past. Following a trail of blood, you discover a letter you wrote, letting you know you chose to forget your past, and tasking yourself with descending into the inner sanctum of the castle, finding a man named Alexander, and killing him.
19th of August, 1839. I wish I could ask how much you remember. I don't know if there will be anything left after I consume this drink.
Waking up with no memory in a creepy castle during the mid-1800s would be bad enough, but as you discover notes scattered about the game, particularly your journal entries, you realize that there is much more to your task than simply heading down a few flights of stairs. The events of your past led you here, to the castle at Brennenburg, in possession of a mystical artifact, the taking of which provoked a being only described as the Shadow, to seek the orb, and you, out, killing everything that stands in its way. Cave-in, weird flesh-like growths, and other generally bad stuff precedes the Shadow as it hunts you down. But, as you progress and learn more about your past, encounter the servants that call the castle home, and gain flashbacks to the horrors that have occurred within Brennenburg, you find that the Shadow might not be your biggest enemy in all of this. One of the more interesting features of this game is its physics interaction system. Most of the objects you'll find in the game can be manipulated. Rocks, drawers, and doors are all part of this system. What makes it stand out is the way subtle movements of the mouse correspond with the care you take with that object in game. Grab a door and slowly pull the mouse back, assuming it opens towards you, and you'll just start to crack the door open. Do a quick flick with the mouse and you'll open it just the same. Or maybe you're being chased by a horrible, invisible water monster, and when you come upon a door, you grab it and push hard and fast to fling it open and keep moving before whatever it is catches up and eats your face. The physics system makes for a lot of interesting moments in the game, particularly as you explore every possible place for concealed items that could be of use, as sometimes the game will treat you to something nice when you try and peek into a room, like finding a monster wandering about in a cell, or when you crack open a drawer only to have your character, and you, experience the jump scare of finding a human skull within the desk. Oh, and the whole thing where an invisible water monster chases you through a maze with doors blocking your path? Yeah, that actually happens. The ability to crack open a door and peek around the opening is something you'll be glad you have as you progress in the game, because you'll need to watch out for enemies around pretty much every turn. Most of the time you'll be faced with grunts, and later on the equally creepy brutes. The key to any enemy encounter is to remember you have no means of defending yourself. I would suggest you take the time and read my written review for Amnesia, as I expound on the feeling of vulnerability that results from being put in a really dark situation with revolting enemies and no weapon in much more detail. But basically it's more than a bit disturbing, because your only means of survival is to extinguish your light source and bolt for cover, taking shelter in a room that hopefully includes something like a closet to hide in, thanks to the physics system, or a half wall or pig corpse, or anything at all that puts you out of sight when that telling music cues up. Twisted human forms aren't your only threat in this game. One that is far more pressing is the issue of your own sanity. As your sanity falls, either by remaining in the dark or witnessing disturbing events, such as taking too long a look at the monster that's about to hack your face off, things get rough. Your screen starts to move, you hear your teeth grind. Let it progress further, and you'll start to see things, like bugs crawling all over your screen, or hear noises that aren't real. When your sanity is dangerously low, it will seem that monsters can spot you easier, you can't run, and may even collapse, which, if a monster is nearby, isn't a good thing. You can battle the insanity by sticking to a light source. When a light isn't readily available, and as the game progresses, they will seem to be less and less so, you can use one of two items. First up is your lantern, which will burn oil as you keep it out. The other is by using tinderboxes to light candles or other such items which are pretty much everywhere. Both of these require scouring the game for hidden supplies, and you'll want to use them sparingly to ensure you have enough. It's important to note that light doesn't make you sane, it just keeps you from slipping deeper into insanity's grasp. While, with the number of items you can collect in this game, there is something that will improve your health if a monster gets in a few hits or you took a nasty fall. The only way to really improve your mental state is to solve puzzles. Puzzles come in a variety of forms, from simpler ones that require you to hunt down rods and cogs to fire up an elevator, to pulling certain books in a library to open a door, to figuring out the right combination of items, some carried with you throughout the majority of the game, to break a lock or draw a blood sample. Some of the puzzles you'll encounter will require you to also hunt down the alchemical recipe or some other form of instructions, while for others you must simply observe how a system of weights is set up in one room and match it in another. The puzzles are an interesting juxtaposition, requiring a degree of focus to the otherwise frantic nature of, oh crap, I'm being chased by monsters and have no weapon, gameplay. Where Amnesia scores big with me though is the atmosphere. When I began playing it, I found I could only handle the game for 15 to 30 minutes. By then the paranoia of leaning around every corner and sneaking a peek through each door with the expectation that a monster would show up at any minute started to fray my resolve. Add to that the decreasing sanity level of my character as I searched for some missing item to complete a puzzle, struggling without light because I had run out of lantern oil too soon, and I found it perfectly fine to retire after playing for only a little bit. Heck, you can read about an experience in my written review where I tried to outrun a monster, and when that didn't end well, I turned to my roommate, heart hammering, and said, I don't want to play this game anymore. The two roughest sections of this game are at about the 2 and 4 hour marks, those being the terrifying water area and the dungeon, which would be creepy enough if several monsters hadn't burst out of cages, murdered people, and then decided to patrol the area. I actually took a multi-month break from this game in the middle of the dungeon section after playing the game off and on for about 2 months. I was then able to come back to the game and pound out the last 4 hours or so over 2 nights, playing for some prolonged periods, especially compared to what I had done earlier. Either I had prepared myself for what was coming, or the terror the game inspires wasn't a strong post-halfway point, though the game does get really dark, and I don't mean in a lighting sense, from there on out. I'll admit I'm not the biggest fan of things that go bump in the night, but I still managed to wrap this up in a little over 8 hours. And I suggest you give it a go at $10 or less, no matter your susceptibility to jump scares, a dark atmosphere, and moments where you have to run for your life, because Amnesia, The Dark Descent, is one of those rare gems in gaming. A 10 out of 10.